We are here with Naveen Sarma, S&P Global Ratings Managing Director and Sector Lead of U.S. Media and Telecom, to talk about all things coming in 2025. Naveen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And speaking of the new year, in just 1 week, we've had a lot of news. I have not slept very much. I don't know about you, but what's been the biggest surprise to you so far?
In the past week, you know what? Disney, Fubo, Hulu, that announcement, didn't expect it. And I think it's good for Fubo, clearly, and it's good for, I guess, Venue. So from a sports standpoint, that totally surprised us, but I think it's good for the ecosystem.
You answered my next question because in your M&A outlook coming into the year, you predict there wouldn't be too many sizable deals that would materialize just due to differences in perceived value, lack of capital, regulatory hurdles, even with a more friendly incoming administration towards M&A. But we had Fubo and Hulu, which clears the way for Venue to launch. So you say that you feel that Fubo wins, but what else do you think about this?
Actually, I think Venue wins as well because now they have the opportunity to launch it before. And look, they very well may have problems with other people coming in and suing and getting injunctions as well. So I wouldn't say that Venue is clear, free and clear, but this I think is an interesting acquisition or merger or whatever you want to call it for both companies, and it gives them a little more scale. What's interesting is when you look at the virtual MVPD world, there's one guy and one guy only, and they're growing like crazy, and that's YouTube TV, and everyone else lacks scale. And so consolidation that drives a bit of scale and allows these guys to grow helps the overall ecosystem.
Because this now puts them, I believe, with the combination, puts them either right above or on par with YouTube TV, doesn't it?
YouTube TV's never put out a number, right? And so we're estimating that it's somewhere around 9 million. This would put Fubo, Hulu would be at about 6.2 million, I believe, or 6.4 million, somewhere around there.
But even with this, do you think that there's still some sort of like cloud over what exactly is ESPN, Disney sports streaming strategy? They have a lot going on out there in the market. Is it confusing at all to Wall Street?
I think it's confusing to a lot of people. Absolutely. But in a way, I would call this continued experimentation. We saw the experimentation with the streaming services. This is experimentation with virtual video, and we'll see where this goes. What Charter is doing is experimentation as well, and that could have an impact on the ecosystem. So doing nothing just leads to further cost cord cutting. So you might as well try something. And so this is an attempt to try something.
I can say my younger brother texted me the day after the deal was announced and said, "Why did Fubo's stock quintuple?" And I called him and I was like, this is too much to explain over a text.
It is very complicated, even for us who cover it. Trying to explain this to our colleagues is bad enough. And then you go to a party and people want to ask you about these things, or they have an opinion about this. And about halfway through the conversation, you're like, listen, this could take all day to talk about this, and I don't really want to talk about this anymore.
In your forecast for 2025, you noted that Charter's bundled pay TV and streaming strategy was something to look out for this year. Charter is the biggest traditional TV provider in the country, but what developments are you specifically paying attention to?
What they're doing with the bundle of streaming as well as pay TV is interesting. So what they've done is they've now gone and negotiated with the vast majority of the streaming companies, media companies, to get both the rights for, the transmission rights, the retransmission rights for the linear TV networks, but also the ability to go and bundle the streaming services in those with pay television. And that's really interesting. I mean, we were just having a debate, me and my colleagues, about, does this really impact the ecosystem? And then on top of that, I mean, Charter seems to not only are they doing things like that, but they're also now launching a bundle where you can get broadband and you can get wireless, which has kind of become the double play service. But you also have the opportunity to now pick video as well and to do that as a triple play. And if you throw in a discount, which is what they'll probably end up doing, consumers might look at that and go, you know what, I'll go with the video service as well. If you do the math and you look at all of the pricing discounts you get by getting a bundle like that, it might actually be, I think it is actually cheaper than going to like a YouTube TV and just going for video. So if you're offering consumers video and streaming at the same price as video, maybe they'll go along with it. So Charter is going to be very interesting to watch over the next couple of years to see if this actually stabilizes the rate of cord cutting.
I mean, 2025 is obviously going to be less busy from a media rights perspective than 2024 was. But, going back to what we were talking about with that Disney ESPN strategy and just some confusion maybe out there, two big properties that are already aligned with ESPN Disney, Formula One, UFC, those are two big properties up this year. Do you think that those properties want to maybe stay with Disney because they have this breadth and the development that they're doing on the streaming side? Or do you see maybe more digitally native properties like Netflix, like Amazon coming in, maybe snatching some of those up?
We've heard Mark Shapiro say this publicly at a number of conferences where, clearly the breadth of, or the depth of ESPN has been a big advantage for UFC. And so I think at the end of the day, they and as well as Formula One would like to stay with ESPN, but I don't think they necessarily give the entire package to ESPN. Maybe they split it with a Netflix. And so you get the advantage of being on ESPN, but also you get to reach consumers through a different way, through whether it's Netflix or somebody else. So I think it ends up getting split.
Talking about Netflix, I mean, I don't know, for those who watched that first WWE Raw event on Monday night, they were all in. You had The Rock dropping Netflix references and Squid Game references and, calling out Netflix execs sitting in suites. Start of 2024, they were still on the, we're not in on sports. Boom, you got WWE. Then you got the NFL games on Christmas Day. Is 2025 a year where they continue to accelerate their purchase of sports properties, or are they gonna see what they have, that it works, see that they can do that on a regular basis?
Netflix is interesting because they say stuff. We're never going to do advertising, and then they finally do advertising. We're never
whole lot of talk out there.
Yeah, exactly. It's what do they do rather than what do they say? I do think, and I didn't have a chance to watch Raw, but I did watch the NFL games, and I think clearly they're making, let's call it, baby steps, right? They didn't do that good a job with the Tyson fight. I didn't have any problems with, and I didn't hear of any problems with the two football games. So I think they're learning their way through this, and I think that you'll see them take on additional rights. Is it going to be, something dramatic this year? Probably not. Although, I mean, they are taking the Women's World Cup, so you are getting them taking steps, and so I could see them, talk by the end of the decade. Could they have an NFL package? Yeah, I don't see why not.
They definitely love to own a lot of those, an entire event or an entire property, like you said, like with the Women's World Cup that they signed late in 2024. But Molly and I have kind of been on the record. I've been on the record. I think that they are that secondary partner for UFC, even though it's not the entire thing. You'll be able to do some creative events, creative things, even with a secondary sort of package, whether it's pay-per-view type events, but there is enough inventory out there, especially globally, that I think Netflix could do with UFC.
Yeah, I agree. And you can see shoulder programming, right?
Absolutely.
Things on various fighters. Yeah, absolutely.
And they've been playing with that too. If you just look at the sheer amount of sports documentaries they've been doing and just the follow docs, Netflix has been very interested in shoulder programming.
Yep, totally agree.
All right, Naveen, we're going to wrap things up with a couple quick hypotheticals, things we're looking at for the rest of the year. I want to know, do you think some sort of larger merger is out there? And the one I'm thinking of, and this is, pie in the sky sort of thing, maybe a Fox-Turner merger, bringing that together. You have the broadcast network. Turner obviously doesn't have that thing. Would that sort of merger work?
Yes, I do. I think it's a very interesting thing to do. I think Fox has to come up with an exit strategy at some point, right? The longer they wait, the less valuable they are.
And I think the Nevada decision really turns up the heat on that sort of situation. Yeah.
And clearly Warner's is the one company that desperately needs a broadcast network.
Yeah.
So the question is there a currency that Warner's can use that Fox would be willing to take? They've already got a lot of Disney shares, right? Or at least the Murdochs do. So, but seems to be the most logical outcome for a Fox deal.
Yeah, and obviously with that exit strategy and the Nevada decision, we're talking about the stuff going on with the Murdoch family and the changes they were trying to make to.
It's for the Murdoch family trust and who controls the trust. And in that case, it's, the way it's set up currently today is it's all four kids, the older ones, and he was trying to move that to Lachlan.
The fact that I couldn't come up with trust, we're not going to play this for my law school professors.
Naveen, I'm interested in what ESPN's doing around Flagship. That's launching fall 2025. We've talked about Venue, which ESPN is a partner in, but what are your predictions around Flagship? What can we expect kind of around pricing and then just interest in it?
I think it's going to be somewhere between $30 and $40. We'll see. We already got kind of a price point for Venue this is less content than Venue has, so it's got to be priced less than that. We live in New York. We look at things like Gotham. Gotham is it's Yes and it's MSG, and that's $30 a month. I would argue that ESPN has more value than Gotham, and so it's got to be priced somewhere between Venue and Gotham. If you talk to Disney, they're talking down expectations, so they don't want to get in over their skis and have people be disappointed by the number of subs. It'll be interesting to see how many people sign up for it. I will. And I'm going to have a serious discussion with my family about whether or not we get rid of linear television, because now we can get everything we need through streaming.
Continued cord cutting. It's not stopping. It's not stopping anytime soon.
But it's an interesting debate that we're having, within our team as to all of these things are happening, whether you got Venue or you've got Charter doing what they're doing, and then you've got ESPN flagship. What does this mean for cord cutting? And we've kind of seen cord cutting get worse every year. I think it stabilized a little bit in 24. Does it get worse? Does it get better? Flagship would indicate maybe it gets worse. Charter indicates maybe it gets a little bit better. It'll be interesting to see.
Naveen Sarma with S&P Global, thank you so much for joining us, and it's going to be a crazy year.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate you coming back.
Yep. Thank you.